Welcome to the Adam Does Movies podcast. I'm, of course, Adam, and today we're going to be talking about my top 10 favorite movies that kind of saved a franchise. Might have been the second in the lineup. It might have been the fourth or fifth, but these are the movies that kind of, saved it from extinction or from becoming too stale or terrible. A rebirth, a phoenix rising from the ashes, reborn again. I also have two honorable mentions that I'm going to get into, but first, I should just point out that if you're watching me on YouTube, please subscribe if you're new here. I post movie content each and every week. Would love to have you stick around. A podcast goes out every single Monday, just like this one. It's earlier if you're listening on Spotify or Apple Podcasts or any other podcasts you listen to. It goes out at 9 a.m., I think it's 9 or 8. I'll say 8. It goes out at 8 a.m. every Monday. I can't remember when I schedule this crap. I have to go in and look. It's either 8 or 9. Regardless, it's earlier than it is on YouTube. On YouTube, I post it around 11:30, and I do a watch-along, a premiere is what they call it. It's fancy. I'm in the live chat talking with you guys, muting myself so I don't have to hear my voice because it's nails on a chalkboard to me. But I'm going to be there. I'm going to be present, and we're going to chat it up. Also, if you have any movies after listening to me and getting completely inspired, of course, put them in the comments on YouTube. I'd love to hear a movie or two that you thought kind of resurrected a franchise. All right, let's begin with the honorable mentions. First on the list is Prey, spelled P-R-E-Y, like a hunter going after its prey. I don't think I needed to clarify what that meant. This is a prequel to Predator, not to be confused with The Predator or Predators. It's really good naming conventions in this franchise. This is a prequel. It takes place many decades, centuries earlier. It follows an Indian tribe, a young woman who needs to kind of prove herself to the men of the group that she can be a hunter and not just a gatherer, not just another basic woman cooking and cleaning. It's got a very simple premise. A predator goes down. He starts battling her. She gets better as the movie goes on, uses her skills. It's a simple, nice film. And I only have it as an honorable mention because I have no idea if it was successful because it was a day one Hulu exclusive. Didn't go to theaters. Foolishly, they didn't put it in theaters. They brought it home to die. It was during COVID times. Things were sketchy. Things were dicey in Hollywood. But I think that was a mistake. So I really don't know how to gauge the success of it. I think a lot of people enjoyed it. I know I did. And I'd like to see more contained bottle-style episodes of Predator like this. These quick hour and a half, hour 45-minute movies like the original, like Prey. They don't have to be related at all. Just make them simple and just throw them in different settings. I'd love to see a futuristic Predator movie. That would be sweet. And I also put this on here because I wasn't impressed with the other Predator films. Predator 2 I thought was a huge step down. I know some people really like it. I get the whole out of the jungle into the concrete jungle idea, but the protagonist, I didn't like it. Okay? Predators had some cool ideas. It falls apart in the second half. The Predator was terrible. Just all around, not great. They're all watchable, but nothing beats the original. All right, other honorable mention, and this one's only on here for representation for my community because several people have told me Ouija, Origin of Evil is a really damn good movie. And the original Ouija, not so great, very forgettable, very lame. Again, I didn't see it, but I'm putting it on here as a tip of the hat because people recommended it. My shirt's kind of like, God, I need new clothes. My shirts are all just embarrassing at this point. I guess it just goes with my character. God. Okay. The first one, these aren't in order. I just want to point that out. I quickly, went into the noodle and pulled out 10 movies out of my ass that I thought were worthy of being on this list. They are not top 10. There's no order to this. The first one I throw on here is the only MCU film, and that's Thor Ragnarok. Actually, there should be 2 on here. Yeah, there are 2 on here. Never mind. We got 2 MCU movies on here. Thor Ragnarok, the 3rd outing for our boy Thor, if you don't count Avengers and some of the side stuff he showed up in. But this is the one that I think really got the character in a good place. In the first 2 movies, he's very moody and brooding. He's got the fish out of water humor going for him. So it's really more at his expense and less us laughing along with him. Thor Ragnarok, they realized that Thor's actually really funny. So they played to his strengths. And they found a good balance with this picture. Yes, he's cracking jokes, more like Guardians of the Galaxy. Sometimes it undercuts a serious moment, but for the most part, because of Hemsworth's range, he's able to turn it on really quickly. Go from comedy to drama to, more serious moments to humor again. And it just it breathed life into this stale character and property. The Thor movies are kind of lame. The first one's fine. The second one's pretty awful. It's just such a mediocre movie. There's nothing very interesting going on. And so Ragnarok, most people look at and say, yeah, now this is what I'm talking about. This is the God of Thunder. He's kicking ass. He's jokey. It's just a good time. And then it was instantly ruined in Thor Love and Thunder. They went all in on the humor and undercut everything credible about this character. But that's not what this is. This is a list of movies that got the character or the story or the product, which a lot of these are just products now, on the right path. Next up on my list is The Suicide Squad, not to be confused with Suicide Squad. Again, the naming is so good in these films, isn't it? A somewhat soft reboot. I know why they called it The Suicide Squad, because they want their cake and they want to eat it too. God, this shirt is just miserable. I gotta move past this shirt. James Gunn's at the helm here. I mentioned Guardians of the Galaxy. He's bringing that lighter tone and feel to it while still retaining kind of an edge to everything. This movie has a lot of blood. It's violent. It's heavy on the R. There's a good amount of swearing. Yes, there's some dick jokes, of course. James Gunn staple. Some people don't like the humor. I thought it worked really well. I love that he's got freaking Schwarzenegger voicing King Shark. He's got Polka Dot Man. There's a lot of good stuff in this film. I recently brought this up in a past podcast, so I don't want to, I don't want to beat a dead horse. But The Suicide Squad took what didn't work from Suicide Squad and what did. It brought over some characters like Amanda Waller. It brought over, obviously, Harley Quinn. And it brought over the music from James Gunn. James Gunn's known for great music. He infuses it effortlessly again, whereas Suicide Squad is just changing pop songs every 5 seconds and doing it the wrong way. A very insulting film, I think that one is. A very product-heavy film. This one feels like a movie again. And I have no idea what's up next. Now James Gunn is actually the head. He's a co-captain or whatever the hell, the co-manager, like it's a freaking episode of The Office with Peter Safran, and they are steering the DCU ship going forward after Blue Beetle. We'll see what they come up with. This is really up in the air. Between the Peacemaker TV show and the Suicide Squad, I don't know if these are on the chopping block too, because most of the other DCEU is. But they got it right on this one, for sure. All right, speaking of naming, man, all these are just brilliant naming conventions. Halloween! Not to be confused with the original Halloween. This is actually the sequel. Not to be confused with Halloween 2, which was also the sequel. This is a reboot of the second movie, taking it in an entirely different direction following the events of the first film. Some people really like Halloween 2. I found it to be way too campy, way too stupid. And obviously the Halloween movies from there went on a crash course of complete shit shows to once in a while doing something kind of cool again with Halloween H2O. That one was pretty solid. But here we get to start fresh without completely replacing what was before. We're doing an alternate timeline, and I think it worked really well. Now, again, we're not talking about the ones that came after, which are a mixed bag for sure. I happen to like the new Halloween trilogy. I think it had a solid beginning, a pretty sloppy middle, and then once again closed out in a satisfying way. but there are people that absolutely hate that final one. But that's not what this is. This is on Halloween, a movie that I think laid it up really nicely for a new trilogy. It paid a lot of respect to what came before. It brought back familiar characters, and we're off to the races. And it also inspired, obviously, movie properties like Scream, and I know they're making a new set of what's the horror films called that they're redoing? They're like the most iconic movies. Oh my God, I can't think of it. Oh, this is a live podcast. We're moving on. It'll come. Oh, The Exorcist. They're doing a new trilogy of The Exorcist. Whew, I got there. Really at clutch. Really at the buzzer. Okay, Halloween. Let's move on. This is actually not just a great, rebranding, but it's just a brilliant film. It's one of my favorite comic book movies of all time, and that's X-Men Days of Future Past. I say rebranding because it really took a lot of the amazing talent from the first three, and it pulled in the characters from X-Men Origins. Or I guess it's X-Men First Class. I get all these names confused. X-Men First Class. X-Men Origins is that terrible Wolverine movie. It married the two together, and it set up this awesome foundation for future movies starring the new cast and potentially bringing back some of the old favorites. Because what happened is X-Men 3 ruined a lot. It's a shit show of a film. Watchable? Sure. A good follow-up to X2? Absolutely not. It's a massive step down from that awesome film. X-Men 3, X-Men United is a disaster from front to back. A very watchable Saturday morning cartoon type of disaster, but it is a disaster nonetheless. It killed off a lot of key characters in an unceremonious way. The plot is nonsensical. It mashed too much too quickly. X-Men Days of Future Past takes time developing. It builds up this great story, this grandiose story, where we have the future characters in a post-apocalyptic setting with Sentinels, fan favorite Sentinels, and they have to have Wolverine go to the past, convince a young Charles Xavier to make up with Magneto. So he stops fucking things up. I love this movie. I've seen it several times. If you haven't watched the Rogue Cut, it's the superior version. It adds, I don't know, maybe 10 minutes only, 10 to 15 minutes, because they took Rogue out of the movie, which is insane. What a Fox thing to do. Put Rogue on the posters and on the cover and talk about how Paquin's going to be in it, who was a huge star at that time. She's fresh off of True Blood, which was a very popular show. And so you tease her, but then you pull her out. You cut her out all the scenes, and then you say, oh, she's going to be coming out on the Blu-ray down the road. You can get her on the DVD Rogue Cut version. Oh my, that might be the most egregious cash grab I've ever seen, like in movie history. To take out an entire character. Wow. And it's good. There's a whole, new section dedicated to her. She's very crucial to the final whole plot. I just can't believe they did that. Anyway, X-Men Days of Future Past, it's a really good movie. And it set the stage for a lot of potential. They could go with the original cast again because they brought people back. They could go with the new class. They could keep mashing them together. Unfortunately, that didn't happen, and we got Age of Apoca shit, which is a really crappy movie, in my opinion. We got the worst of both worlds in that one. The old cast didn't return. We had the new class, and a lot of them were just disrespected, I think. Or underdeveloped. But these are about the movies that got us to a point where we could ruin them all over again. All right, Mission Impossible 3. Tom Cruise is back. He cut the hair. Got a little bit more professional this time. A lot less John Woo this time. There's no slow motion white doves going around. There's no, spinning around triple takes with the guns. This is a J.J. Abrams affair. This guy is the master of rebooting franchises. He did it with Star Trek. He did it with Star Wars. He did it with Mission Impossible 3. This was the first one. that he set sail on. This is the one that he said, all right, I'll start here and then I'll just keep making more money down the road. And I like this movie a lot. The major thing he gets right here is giving us a villain that we actually give a shit about. Mission Impossible has very weak villains, I believe. I really don't care for any of them outside of Philip Seymour Hoffman's. He's just so good. He's so subdued in his role. He just effortlessly has that kind of bad guy essence. And he's really elevating Tom Cruise's reactions in this. Where's the rabbit's foot? Where's the rabbit's foot? Just the way he says it is so douchey and confident. And Tom Cruise is like, I'm not going to tell you what to... You don't think I'll do it? You don't think I'll do it? And Cruise is just tearing up. He's just pissed. I love this movie. It's so good. And this one, unlike pretty much all the others I've said that are either up in the air or got bad again, this one took everything forward. Mission Impossible 4, 5, 6, 7, they keep hitting it out of the park. Even the worst ones after 3 are still freaking great. So when you make like a Mission Impossible ranking, it's really just Mission Impossible 2's at the bottom for 90% of people. And then everything after that's candy. Everything after that's gold. Next up on my list, another J.J. Abrams, we teased it. Star Wars, The Force Awakens. I know this one and my next one on the list may be a little bit of a cheat. Because technically the trilogies are standalone. Star Wars Episode 4, 5, and 6, which are the originals. Then you have the prequels, 1, 2, and 3. And then you have the new ones. 6, 7, 8, 7, 8, 9. 7, 8, 9. Yeah, my math is great. JJ did the first one, and then he came back to do the embarrassing final installment. Force Awakens, though, I put on this list because everybody pretty much loves the original trilogy. A lot of people don't like the prequels. I don't like the prequels. A lot of people I know don't. I think younger generations are more fond of it because maybe they watched them as kids, their parents showed them. I don't really know why, honestly. I can't pretend to understand the mindset you have to be in. I get liking Revenge of the Sith. It's got some angsty emo shit in it. It's got some pageantry. I don't still think it's very good, but it's definitely the most watchable of the prequels. It's a lot more fun than the other two, I'll say that much. Which is odd to say because it's by far the darkest and most disturbing. Force Awakens, though, really brought everyone back together. The old fans, the prequel fans, all seem to be on board. Of course, you are never going to win everyone over, and now there are plenty of people that hate The Force Awakens because of what came after. But when that movie went to theaters, lines were out the door. This was truly one of the last films I've seen in theaters where there were huge lines, even when you pre-bought your tickets and picked out your seats. There was still people out the door waiting just to get to their picked out seats hours ahead of the movie premiere. People are dressed up. You know, I take that back. I think Avengers Infinity War and Endgame were after The Force Awakens. But even those movies, I didn't have that same level of energy for some reason. I still went to the theater day one, and it was, of course, a packed house, but Star Wars had a different vibe to it. It really felt like an old school movie, going to a midnight showing and seeing all these people so excited to be back with Star Wars. The Force Awakens is a very safe, pretty bland movie all around. Yes, it's a complete rehash of A New Hope with new skins, new booster packs, but the new cast was really likable. Rey, Finn, Poe. You got the trio just right. Kylo Ren was a badass villain. I love he's stopping a freaking blaster shot mid-air. A total boss. It's just everything after sucked again. And because everything after, even if you like The Last Jedi, plenty of people think it's a brilliant movie and one of the best of Star Wars. That's fine. You have your opinion. It's terrible, but you have it. But even if you love that movie, there's no way you like J.J. Abrams' return with The Rise of Skywalker, because he discredits everything in The Last Jedi. I even said myself, if JJ's coming back, he just has to play off of Last Jedi the best he can and make the most of it, but he didn't. Instead, he went against all of the stuff it set up. So it spits on people that like The Last Jedi, and it doesn't really do anything for people that didn't, because we're already checked out of it. But The Force Awakens had us. And then it all lost us inevitably. And now I have no desire to watch any of those movies ever again, which is a shame. It's a shame. I'd love to know if anybody loves the trilogy. If you love the Star Wars sequel trilogy, let me know in the comments. No judgment. I don't care if you do. I'm just curious. I mean, I think it would be cool if people did, because, I mean, someone's got to like it, right? It's got to appeal to someone. Oh, okay. The other one I said is kind of a cheat is Jurassic World. This one less so of a cheat, I guess. It is another soft reboot. You had the original Jurassic Park trilogy, if you want to call it that. I really call it just Jurassic Park. Freaking amazing movie, my favorite movie of all time. Steven Spielberg, a master of the craft. And then you have those other ones. Now, Spielberg came back for Lost World, but this is one of the least Spielbergian movies I've ever seen. And I think it's because, and I'm gonna botch the name of I'm gonna forget the name of the writer, which he always does movie type books, and I've read most of them, and now I'm completely blanking on him. But regardless, he was approached to make a sequel book for Jurassic Park, which he didn't really have any desire to do, but Spielberg actually called and convinced him to do it, so he did. The name is starting to come in the back of my mind. You know, I'm going to look it up quick. I'm going to look it up. Jurassic Park author. Michael Crichton. There you go. Michael Crichton wrote the book. I actually read it. It's funny enough, Jurassic Park takes elements, or I'm sorry, Jurassic Park 2 takes elements from the first Jurassic Park book. So those little green dinosaurs, like the compies or whatever they're called, in the first book, it opens with this really disturbing scene where we're in a child's bedroom, a little infant baby, and the windows open and those little tiny dinosaurs are eating the baby. And the parents walk in. It's incredibly disturbing. So in Jurassic Park, The Lost World, Spielberg actually takes that scene. He obviously tones it down a lot, and he puts a girl on the island with her parents. She goes over the tree, and then the little dinosaurs jump over and eat her, and you just see the stream of blood. It's a very cool, disturbing opening scene. That movie, though, I thought was a massive step down. It didn't feel like its heart was in the right place like the first one did, and I think it's because the source material from Crichton wasn't really there either. I don't think he was in it for the right reasons. I think he thought, yeah, okay, fine, I'll shit out this sequel to cash an easy check, and then I'll move on with more interesting new stories to tell. Regardless, it still has that badass RV, whatever, that mobile vehicle sequence that drops down with the double T-Rexes. That part's awesome, and the raptors running through the fields are awesome. So it's got those two moments that are really freaking cool. Unfortunately, the rest of the movie, not so much. And it's got some really dumb shit in it. Like the girl that does the gymnastics and kicks the raptor out the window. Absolutely unforgivable moment. Jurassic Park 3 ups the odds by having a raptor say Alan. I know it's a dream scene, but that's some haunting imagery. They couldn't have cut that. No one thought for a second, hey, maybe we shouldn't have a raptor say Alan. The cringe levels are through the roof. So Jurassic World is, it's another soft reboot. It's the same movie as the first one. Again, we're back at a theme park. Everything's bigger. Everything's louder. We have a new type of T-Rex, the Indominus Rex. We have raptors being trained by Owen. Just like The Force Awakens, it's a very mid movie. It's doing everything it needs to do. And it's doing a good enough job to justify jumping along for more of these films. There's enough pageantry on display. There's enough cool dinosaur action. They're bringing some water creatures in finally. We get some pterodactyls in the mix, and we get some cool new stuff. So, not a bad film. And then we go to the sequels that are absolute train wrecks. Some really, really terrible stuff on display. But again, they got it right once. They got it right once. Hey, finally, we're at something that continuously gets better. Well, not continuously, but it gets better. And that's Batman Begins. This one, again, we're going after a bunch of pretty bad Batman movies. We had the first two, of course, by Tim Burton with Michael Keaton, that are timeless. They're classics. Although I don't think the first one holds up well at all with the Joker. It's a little too dated for me. It's really hard to watch. The sequel, though, with Catwoman Penguin, freaking banger still. I love that movie. Batman Forever with Jim Carrey, who's essentially playing the Joker. You have Tommy Lee Jones as Two-Face. Drew Barrymore's randomly in the mix in the background. You have Val Kilmer as Batman, who does a good job, but it was really hard to move on and pretend this is still the same universe as what Tim Burton provided. It feels like a completely separate type of movie. And then we go even further down the garbage hole with Joel Schumacher's Batman and Robin. This thing's a shit show. You got Mr. Freeze doing puns every 5 seconds. You got Uma Thurman. Well, no notes on that. Uma Thurman's a treasure. She's beautiful. Batgirl's in the mix. Alicia Silverstone trying to fit her fat ass into a leather outfit. I'm joking. Alicia Silverstone is a smoke show. But I felt bad because I remember when the movie came out, Alicia Silverstone was saying how mean the studio was to her and they were trying to make her lose a bunch of weight. It was just miserable. Oh, Hollywood, you're fantastic. And of course, we can't forget the bat nipples. Can't forget the bat nipples and the cod pieces on the outfits. Where do you go but up from there, right? It's not like Christopher Nolan had that tough a challenge to bridge the gap from bad to good. And he did a very effortless job of doing so. I like Batman Begins. It's actually grown on me over the years. The first couple times I watched, it was like, it's all right. I'm not huge on the orange color palette they for some reason use in that one. Scarecrow was a solid villain, but I knew that he could do better. And man, did he do better with Dark Knight. But we're talking about the first one. And Dark Knight Rises, by the way, I like that one too. Yeah, it's a lot sillier, and it's not trying to be. It's just unintentionally a little bit sillier with some of the plot points and some of the conveniences. But it's still a damn good movie, in my opinion. And this is a great trilogy through and through. So Batman Begins, yeah, he set Batman on the right course. Beautiful course correction from Batman and Robin. And then we have two more left. Hunger Games Catching Fire, the sequel to Hunger Games. Hunger Games 1, I mean, let's be honest. Hunger Games did very well at the theater. It's a massive book property. People love them. I read them. They're great. It was always going to do well pretty much regardless, unless the movie was total garbage. The first Hunger Games isn't bad. It's just painfully lame. It should be much better. So the setup wasn't ideal, but I thought Catching Fire was leaps and bounds better than the first, and it's easily my favorite of the 4 films. That's right, there's 3 books before movies, because we gotta cash grab that last one. Gotta cash grab a 2-parter out of it. Harry Potter made sense. That last book is fucking huge, and a lot happens in it. It makes sense to break it up, or at least make it a 3-hour movie, which of course they weren't gonna do that. But Hunger Games' last book is not big. It's essentially like making the Hobbit 3 movies. There was no need for either of these things to happen. And I like the Hobbit movies. I'm a sucker for Middle-earth. Hunger Games Catching Fire, though, it just really upped the odds. It actually felt like Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire. It had that level of production value to it. The games were a lot more exciting, a lot more visceral. The effects were definitely improved. It just overall was a much cooler movie, a way slicker presentation, one that I expected from it out of the gates. Lastly on our list here, again, last but not least, is Captain America, the Winter Soldier. I don't really care for the first Captain America movie. Again, though, I have grown a little fonder on it, mainly because I really like Chris Evans as Captain America, and not really any other reason. I'm not big on the presentation of the first Captain America. I don't like the whole propaganda look and feel of the flick. And I don't mean propaganda like it's propagandizing us. I mean, it's going for this kind of like tongue-in-cheek, old school army vibe, we want you look. And that just didn't really fly for me. It didn't jive for me. Also, I think the movie's a little too long. The Red Skull was okay. He never really got where I wanted him to, especially considering the actor is freaking Agent Smith, one of the greatest villains of all time. Captain America, the Winter Soldier, takes things in a completely different direction. No longer has the look at all of the first. Now it's really a spy action thriller. Very slick again. It's got a grittiness to it. It's very frantic with the camera movements. You got some Bourne Identity shots, completely ripping off Bourne Identity at one point. Actually, that might be Civil War. That might be Civil War, actually. One of them has the behind the back shot through the window. It's like there's no getting around it. They totally copied it. Regardless, Winter Soldier, a great step in the right direction. Plus, you got Scarlett Johansson in there. Black Widow joined the team, and I will never complain about her. I really like the look, too. The straight hair in this one, beautiful. Beautiful look. She's good as Black Widow, too, but really I'm just there to look at her and just appreciate everything she brings to the table. Chris Evans, of course, a male specimen like no other as well. So really, you have a lot of eye candy. You got a lot of good action. Winter Soldier was a cool, badass villain. They tied him to the original movie, which is a little unfortunate because you kind of need to see it in order to really get what's going on fully. But that said, this would lead to Civil War, which is a fun time at the movies. No complaints there either. All right, I got through it, I think, pretty effortlessly, pretty seamlessly. Let me know again if I sparked your interest in coming up with your own list. Are there movies that I left off where you're like, you know what? Why don't you throw on Casino Royale? Why don't you throw on a 007 flick? Again, that one seems almost like the biggest cheat because those movies are constantly kind of rebooting and starting over. That just goes with the character at this point. But feel free to throw it on there if you want. I like Casino Royale quite a bit, and it definitely was an improvement from those schlocky later Pierce Brosnan flicks. All right, leave a comment. Please like the video if you're on YouTube. Subscribe, share it around. And if you're listening again on Spotify, you can go ahead and follow me there as well, or on Apple Podcasts. I would appreciate it. If you really like what I'm doing, there are ways to support. The biggest one is to become a Patreon or a YouTube Join member. You can just hit join, and there's a $1 tier, a $10, a $20. There's different perks associated with them, and that goes the same for Patreon. It's the same across both. You could also just right now throw me a super chat. A $5, a $10, say, hey, Adam, really love what you're doing on YouTube here. Keep it up. And I would appreciate it. So hopefully you like the show, and I'll catch you next time.